Let's imagine that you're somebody who has just heard of somebody that's offering Reiki. And let's imagine that your name is Sally. You're about 43 years old, and you kind of been having of late a little bit of worry, a bit of anxiety about things happening in your life, certain people you're concerned about, and also at work. It's just a never-ending cycle of stress. And you find yourself being stretched in so many different directions. And you thought that maybe go and see the doctor. And the doctor was very sympathetic and he did recommend some sort of like medication, but you decided against that. I think you thought to yourself, I don't really want to be taking antidepressants or anything like that. I'd like to maybe explore another avenue. You're talking to a friend at work. Let's call her Melanie. And Melanie said, oh, Sal, there's someone I know, there's this guy I know who does Reiki healing. And Sally looked at him a bit queer, looked at her friend a little bit strange and thought, oh, I don't know, that sounds a bit weird. What exactly is that then? And Melanie explained how the Reiki healing would give her healing, and she said, like, maybe you should try give it a go. And Sally wasn't totally convinced, but she really didn't want to try medication either, so she decided, okay, I'll try. I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll just book a session. Now, obviously, Sally really doesn't know what to expect. So allow yours truly to walk you through what to expect if you're having a Reiki treatment for the very first time. And this will be helpful, hopefully, to some of my fellow Reiki Masters practitioners who maybe just like to look at it from somebody else's point of view. And it's always nice to have a fresh approach. But let's get back to Sally. Sally looks up um, on the website. She finds a booking page, reads all about her Reiki practitioner, sees he's been doing it for several years. He even teaches people. And she thinks to herself, okay, I will try this with great trepidation. She looks at the fee. It seems okay. It's reasonably priced, she figures. She's checked a few other prices, and this individual, he's right there in the mix. Not too expensive, not too cheap. She doesn't want to go cheap because she wants to find hopefully someone who kind of like has got a few recommendations, who knows what they're doing. So she goes on the website, clicks book, and after she's done that, she has a look on Google Maps, sees where it is. It's got good parking. It seems and quite easy to get to, and she books it in for Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's a Thursday evening, so she then unwinds, goes through Friday. Friday's a manic day at work, just non-stop. And she eventually gets home and just thank goodness I booked this thing for tomorrow. I don't know what to expect, so let's find out. She drives up towards this centre. She finds a space, walks through the door, and immediately is greeted by this lovely scent, this lovely aroma, which puts her at ease a little bit, and she can tell it's a nice professional establishment. And there's a receptionist who greets her, and she says, "Hi, how are you?" Sally introduced yourself. Oh yeah, that's fine. We got you booked in for 2 o'clock. We see you already paid. Make yourself comfortable. Have a look around. If you want a cup of tea or something, we can make that for you if you wish. And Stanley's kind of like thinks, well, okay, I could do, but I know my session's in a minute or two, so maybe I'll wait till afterwards. Maybe I'll just have a sort of like a bottle of water if you don't mind. And of course, the receptionist acquiesces. Sally sits down. Gentleman comes out with the client and takes the client towards the reception. Receptionist says cheerio to that individual, and he comes over to Sally. Go, Sally, and Sally goes, hi, yes, that's me. He goes, Would you like to come this way? And Sally's a little bit nervous. He's quite a tall guy. She's just a little bit apprehensive, and she's thinking, I hope he's all right, this man. Straight away, he ushers her through the establishment, opens a door, makes her sit at ease, and to Sally's surprise, he offers her a seat. She thought she was just going to get on the couch. He says, no, 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 take a seat. And he sits opposite her, and he gently hands her a form and a pen, and she begins to scan the form that she has to fill out. It's nothing major, just a simple name, address, email, contact details. And she asks, why do you need all this information? And he says, it's really for our records. It's also for our insurance. So if anything should happen to all happen, we've got your details and everything's all hunky-dory. And he says he is fully insured. And that reassures you. That actually does make you feel comfortable because he's obviously a professional. So she sits down, begins to fill out all the details, and he starts to talk to her. Says, so, Sally, what brings you here today? And Sally's thinking, well, I've got a few things going on. And he doesn't say much. He just allows Sally to tell her story. So let's imagine Sally's really talking about her anxiety and how it's been building. He says, oh, how many years has it been going on? She says, oh, crikey, when I think about it, probably the last 6 years. And Sally continues to tell her story, begins to pour her heart out, really, about all what's been going on. And the Reiki Master just nods and doesn't really say very much. He allows Sally to tell her story, checks that there's no medication that could influence the session, like she hasn't got a pacemaker or anything like that. And he just begins to tell her what happens. Sally listens attentively as he tells her that she can lay on the couch. And he says to her, are you okay with touch? We don't have to touch. He says, I can work without touching your body at all. But he assures her that she stays fully clothed the whole time. And the only touch is sometimes around the head, on the shoulders, maybe the midriff, sometimes the legs. And he says, absolutely, obviously, he's very aware of where his hands go. And that really does just put Sally totally at ease. And he asks her, is it okay with the incense burning? Is that okay? There's nice candles, but the scene is just perfect. Beautiful soft music playing in the background. The lights are soft. And after maybe about 10-15 minutes conversation about what she's here for today, she lies on the couch, all the while that Reiki Master's telling her about what she may experience. And he tells her, you might, as you lay down, you may feel sensations of heat. He explains that sometimes a lot of heat comes from his hands and also sometimes very cold. He also says to her that sometimes people don't really feel much at all. He explains that sometimes Reiki can make us emotional as we clear old blocks and stuff that comes to the surface. But he reassures her that it says we're getting this out, this stuck energy, for want of a better word. It's far better for us when we release that energy rather than holding on to it. And you agree, Sally agrees with that statement. And he also explains that sometimes, occasionally, there may be another set of hands upon her body, but it's not his. And Sally thought, well, that's a bit weird. But he just explains it's just manifestations of energy working. And he says, I honestly, there's only one pair of hands that I'll be working with you. And again, it's a bit unusual, but Sonny's okay with that. He also explains that sometimes there are sensations of electricity that can run through the body, and it's just a way of the natural energetic flow. And he explains to you that the session will last roughly about sort of like somewhere between around 40 minutes or so. So he says it also at the end, we'll have a conversation about what you experienced. And then you lay down. Tells you just to gently close your eyes, listen to the music, and you take yourself off. And you feel as he gets you into this soft meditative state, you start to zone out as he places your hands on your shoulders, and you will have the most unique experience for you, Sally, whatever that would be. Sometimes we do just have a beautiful, restful experience. We just literally have a bit of you time. Sometimes there are tears. Something will get stirred up. Something will be brought to the surface. But he reassures you that anything that happens in this room stays in this room. It's not going to be flashed all over social media or anything like that. He assures you. And it is just what happens at times. He then explains as you go through your session, you may have had aches and pains that come up sometimes. Again, this is old relief patterns being released. That assures you we're letting go of old energies that need to go. And all the while, you're going through this process as you're relaxing into your healing session. And after said period, you come round out of your healing session. He says to you, come up slowly, don't rush up, really take your time as you come back to planet Earth, as you've been on a very distant place. And sometimes we do feel really spacey, a little bit kind of like discombobulated. And we just take our time to come back to the room. And then he asks you what your experiences were. And Sally will give what she experienced. So let's imagine. She says, yeah, I did get emotional. And I was getting this bright orange glow all around me. And the Reiki Master assures you that's quite normal. And you begin to say, he says, how do you feel? You say, actually feel quite lighter. You feel like something's been lifted. And he says, yeah, that's quite a normal thing. He says, let's go back over, take a seat again, get yourself up very gently off the couch, sit down whilst he sits opposite you. And he takes a few notes as you begin to explain what happened. And you had this sorry sensation. You said you had this feeling of electricity going around you. And you thought there was someone around you as well. And he assures you that could have been a loved one or even your own personal healing guide. And that's, again, it's another surprise for you. And then he begins to tell you what he experienced from you. And he says and he assures you that he was drawn perhaps to around your solar plexus and around your heart. And he said there was it felt like there's a bit of a blockage there, but it's been released. And he may well come up with other material about the whole event. And he might say there was a certain symbol that he may have used. Possibly, they don't always tell you that, but he may have said we was working more on an emotional level as we sought to release that pressure for you. And he asks you, how do you feel right now? And you just feel, actually, I feel pretty good. He tells you before you go to make sure that you ground yourself. By that he means sort of like, really make sure you're back, sort of like back with it, especially if you're going to drive home. And he suggests maybe now's the time to have a cup of tea and a bit of cake or a biscuit, just to make sure that you're back in the room, back into your space. And he also tells you that you may feel a bit strange for the next couple of weeks as stuff continues to be brought to the surface that you're ready to release. And he says you may well want to consider maybe looking 2 or 3 sessions so we can just keep building on the healing session today. And obviously, it's totally up to Sally what she decides to do. He doesn't press her into that. He just says that is what he recommends, and it's up to you whether you want to consider that. And so then we come to the next stage, literally just going out the door, seeing a receptionist and saying, either book a session or go home, take a little leaflet with you about all the things, other options that may be there. Maybe there's readings and stuff like that. Maybe curiosity spiked. And you find yourself relieved that your first Reiki session is done and quite possibly you can't wait for the next one. So there we are, everyone. That's just a little exposition there of what may happen when you go for a Reiki session. I do hope that's been informative. And for those who are already versed in Reiki, maybe that's been useful just to see from another perspective. And for those who are curious about Reiki, I've actually got a little swipe file which is just a nice few little recommendations to do things a little bit different with your Reiki. If that interests you, put it in the comments below. Just put swipe me and I'll explain how we can do that for you. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I wish you all the very best. Much love to you all. Till I catch you at the next one. See you later. Bye bye.